Have you ever asked yourself what happens at the moment of death? We will explore this and you will actually hear the deep secret and also what to do to have some control of that last moment before your death. So we will begin by reading from the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient yoga textbook, which among other things also gives the science of birth and death. And I will read a text from chapter 8, text number 6. This is amazing, amazing text. In Sanskrit, it goes like this. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajantante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers at the time he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So we will read also a little bit of the commentary, the purport to this verse by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. We should note very carefully, how can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life. And so in his next life, he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer, he remembered his past activities, he had to accept an animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. So I'll stop here and just comment a little bit on this text. And before I start, I will recite the mantra to invoke the auspiciousness and blessings of my spiritual teacher. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, who opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded by the darkness of ignorance. So this text very scientifically explains what is actually happening at the moment of death. It is a law. It is a law of nature. So what is this law of nature? The last thought a person has in his mind will carry him to next destination. And this last thought will actually carry him to the exactly the same kind of forum or the same kind of feeling or state of mind or state of consciousness. In our last class, we were actually talking about a very similar subject, which was how our mind creates our reality. And if you remember, those who were listening to that class, there was very important statement that if one really focuses his concentration on some image, on some form, on some person with intense feelings, then one will definitely achieve this same state of existence. So this is how we are creating our reality right now. And so this today's topic is actually the culmination, This is the culmination of our mental activities during our life. So each and every one of us, we are meditating, we are contemplating. Even those of you who say, oh, I don't meditate, I don't believe in meditation, but you do meditate, because in your mind there is some contemplation going on, whether you are aware of it or not. There is the meditation, and your mind is getting absorbed in some thoughts about some person, either some person, some situation, or some thing. Through this, you are actually creating your future external circumstances, and you're actually creating your next body, your next material body. And in this verse is actually very nicely explained how this then really takes place. At the last moment, just before a person dies, or in yogic terms, we actually say that the person leaves his body, because actually the soul, the real person, is a spiritual entity. It's a spiritual being. All of us, we are spiritual beings, and we never die. The only thing that dies is this physical body. This physical body, it's temporary, and at one point it will be destroyed. But the soul, the spiritual personality, does not die. It just leaves the body and goes to the next destination. So the question is, what is the next destination? So we are actually creating our future destination with our thoughts, with our contemplation and meditation during this life. And one very important point is that you cannot just do anything, just live your life any way you want, and then say, oh, okay, now I know this secret. Now I know the secret that at my last thought, at the end of my life, will send me to a next destination. So I know where I want to go. I want to go to some very nice place. I want to be like a very nice, have a very nice birth, very nice life. So I will just think about like being a king or something like that, or whatever, a famous movie star or whatever is desirable to you. But it does not work like this, because we cannot artificially place this last thought at the end of life. On contrary, the last thought is actually being forced within our mind. And it really depends on the meditation that we had during our lifetime. So what really comes up in reality is that our greatest attachment we developed during our life will produce that last thought. And now I would like to tell you this story, which was actually mentioned in the commentary to this text, about king who became a deer. This is a story which is written in Srimad Bhagavatam, another yoga textbook, and it's a true story. This is actually a person that Srimad Bhagavatam explains his 3 lives. In first life, he was a great king, and he was also spiritually very, very advanced. He was so advanced that he was just before reaching the highest state of love of God. And he actually, at one point, he decided to just leave the throne and to go and withdraw into the forest, and then just dedicate the rest of his life, what was still left, to his spiritual advancement. So he went in the forest, he made a little hut, and there he was. He was regularly meditating, and he was meditating in deep trance and already experiencing these spiritual emotions of love, spiritual love. But then something very unusual happened. One morning, when he went to do his his duties, like early morning duties, like washing himself, he went to the river. And when he was just there at the bank of the river, all of a sudden he saw amazing scene on the other side of the river. He saw a female deer drinking water, and behind her was a tiger. Tiger came very close to her, and at the last moment she noticed the tiger, and she was completely scared to death, and she jumped into the water and trying to cross the river. And this deer was pregnant. But because of this great shock and fear of the tiger, when she jumped into the water, she prematurely gave birth. And a little baby deer was flowing into the water. And the deer, she actually crossed the river, but was too exhausted from all the trauma that she experienced, and she just lay down and died. And the little baby deer was just left in the river, and the river was like taking it down. And when the King Bharata saw this scene of this little cute baby deer being taken away in these strong waves of the river, he just felt so much compassion, because he was such an elevated spiritual personality, and he felt compassion for everyone who was in distress. So when the deer, the current of the river brought the little baby deer close to his bank, and he just went into the water and he rescued the deer. So then he brought it to his little ashrama, to his little home, little cottage, and he took care of this little baby deer, feeding it and making sure that he had, was secure from like wild animals. And little baby deer was growing up, and it was a male deer, so he had like little horns coming. And it was very playful and very sweet and extremely beautiful. Like little deers are very, very beautiful. And King Bharata became attached to this deer. With every day, he was becoming more and more attached to the deer, so that it came to the point while he was like sitting to meditate on the Supreme Person, but instead of meditating on the Supreme Person, he was actually meditating on the deer. He was just thinking, oh, where is he? Because the deer sometimes just went into the forest, and he was always in anxiety that something may happen to him. So he was thinking, oh, he went to the forest again. Oh, what if the wolf comes? Oh, what if the tiger comes? Oh, I hope he is secure. Oh, I must go and I must look for him. And like that. In this way, his meditation was disturbed, to say the least. And after some time, he just completely gave up his spiritual practice. And so the time was passing by, and his attachment to the deer was growing stronger and stronger. So he became inseparable with this deer. They were eating together, sleeping together. He was talking to his deer, like petting him all the time. Like the deer became his most dear friend. But then one day, the deer went to the forest and did not come back. And the king was in complete anxiety. He went to the forest and was looking for the deer everywhere, calling him. And he was also really feeling very, very sad, very, very anxious. Oh no, why did I leave him alone? Oh no, I should be more careful. Now he's gone. What if something happened to him? So he was walking around in the forest until the night came. And when the night came, it was all dark. And he was still walking around. And all of a sudden, he just fell into a ditch, into a big hole. And he fell so unfortunately that he actually broke his neck and he died. But the very last moment before he died, the deer appeared. Actually, the deer appeared and he was just there next to him, looking at him. And so what happened next? You can imagine what was his last thought. His last thought was about a deer. So according to the law of nature and according to what is explained in this text, he became a deer. But he was not ordinary deer. He wasn't ordinary deer because he was spiritually so advanced. He actually retained all his spiritual consciousness and remembrance of his past life. So although he was in a body of a deer, he was like a human being inside, and he remembered everything about his past life. And he was just repenting and repenting and repenting how he deviated from his spiritual path. So, but then he got the next chance. After he left this body of a deer, he got a human body again. And in that life, then he was able to complete his journey, of his spiritual advancement, and then return back to the spiritual sky, back home, to the eternal kingdom where everybody lives, to the spiritual reality, to the divine kingdom. So he returned there, and at the end he was successful. So what does this whole story and this verse actually have to do with us? It is actually extremely important for us. Why? Because it is very practical. This philosophy is not just some theory, but it is meant for us to practically apply it in our life. Like in the last class, I gave you a little exercise to just watch a little bit, what are you meditating about, to understand what future are you creating for yourself. So in the same way, now I would like to again ask you, what is this greatest attachment that you have in this life, which will actually cause the last thought you have? And if you are not happy with it, like for example, many people, of course, are attached to another person, like maybe the most beloved wife or husband or lover or a child or a friend. But there are also many people who are very, very attached to their pets, like to cat or to a dog. So do you want to become a dog in your next life? Probably not. So it is important that besides it, I don't want to say that now you cannot love your dog or cat, not at all. It is good. You can love your dog and you can love your cat and care for them. But at the same time, it is important that you cultivate this higher consciousness, this spiritual consciousness, that you start learning about who you really are, that you're a spiritual person, that there is a spiritual reality, that there is a spiritual home where you really belong. and that you can go back there and be totally and fully happy. And for this is something that our human form of life is really meant for. We are meant for discovering and studying about our true nature, about our spiritual self, and reawakening our spiritual self, and becoming attached to spiritual personalities, like to the supreme person, to the supreme soul, and return back to live with him in the divine reality of spiritual kingdom. So now I would like to stop and invite you to also watch some other videos if this is your first video. And I will upload many more videos, so please don't forget to subscribe.